Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. My name's GBay99. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Today, we're back with another League of Legends video where today, it's going to be kind of League of Legends, but we're going to be just relaxing a little bit. I hope you guys sit back, grab a cup of water or something, and relax, as I want to talk to you guys a little bit about a couple of stories. Namely, I want to talk to you about the greatest piece of advice I've ever been given by anyone. So if you've watched my videos for a while, or if you've watched a number of other League of Legends YouTubers in the past, you may remember a site that was being promoted a couple of years ago called Cloth5.com. This was a site that a number of different YouTubers contributed to in the form of blog posts where people would just talk about different things, different meta changes and tier lists and whatnot. There was only ever one blog post or one written article that I put up on the site, but I did contribute once to a single article that was titled "Why I Never Use Mastery Pages." Now, mastery pages were something that was relatively new back at the time. I think they were just being introduced to the game, and maybe they'd been out for about a year or so, and I never used them once, which is something that a lot of people question me on my stream and YouTube channel. It wasn't me being hard to adapt to new technology or living too much in the past or anything like that. I was actually making a conscious effort based off of a weird little principle that I thought I would be a better player if I didn't use mastery pages, which eventually I broke down on, but I still believe in that principle, and that's probably the greatest piece of advice I've ever been given. The advice was given to me by my government teacher my high school year, senior year of high school, where I went to public school growing up. I went to a relatively good school district, so I'm pretty fortunate and happy that I was able to go to some pretty nice schools, but for the most part, I had good teachers and bad teachers. But by far the best teacher I ever had was this government teacher that I had senior year of high school. He taught a lot of different courses. He taught like AP Euro, a bunch of different history and government courses, but the one course that I took from him that I was fortunate enough to take was our government course that you took senior year of high school. And honestly, looking back on it now, it was remarkable how good of a teacher he was. He would always do such a good job of facilitating discussion without ever imposing his own beliefs. I mean, high school is already a really weird point in your life where a lot of high schools are set up where you're still being babied a lot. You're still living with your parents. You might not have a job. You might not have a lot of responsibility, where suddenly you're making all these decisions about where you're going to college and what you're going to do with your life, and all this stuff that's thrown into the air where you have to go out and be on your own, while in a lot of high school courses you still have to ask for permission to go to your locker or go to the bathroom or anything, where you're kind of being babied and then thrown into the biggest decisions you might ever make in your life. He was a teacher that would always treat us like adults, though. He did a fantastic job facilitating that transition from high school to college, where he would just treat us like adults. He would ask us about our opinions, and he would treat our opinions with respect and with just a huge level of maturity that really made a lot of his students respect him in the best possible way. This was especially important considering he was our government teacher. This was the class where we were talking a lot about politics, where we were talking a lot about news and everything that was going on in the world at the time. The year was 2012 when I graduated, so we had a huge election coming up that he, of course, being our government teacher, got us all registered to vote. And whenever we had any political conversation, he would always facilitate discussion without imposing his own beliefs, which was really impressive. There was one point in the year where in Ohio there was an issue on the ballot that had to do with teachers unions, and he was a part of the teachers union at our school, so he was obviously super biased, but he did a fantastic job explaining the issue to us in a non-biased way where we could make an educated decision when we all went out and voted. Anyway, the reason I think it's so important and pretty impressive that he managed to stay neutral was because the one piece of advice that he gave us, the greatest piece of advice he ever gave us in my opinion, was this line that he would always repeat over and over and over: know what you believe and why you believe it. When it comes to politics especially, and any real argument that has two sides to an issue and no right answer, it's so important for you to say what you believe and why you believe it. Being able to say that yourself, and this was when we were all 18-year-olds too, when we were mostly just influenced by our parents and what our parents' political beliefs were. Being able to understand the issues that you're voting for and knowing why you're voting for them is a super important part of just being a citizen, really. Like, I'll give you an example for myself without getting too political. One thing that I think is probably the greatest thing that the American government has ever done for me is NPR, National Public Radio. Oh my goodness, it's so difficult to listen to any radio station for the most part. There's so much crap out on the radio, but NPR, all things considered, there's a lot of very interesting stuff that's always fun to hear them talk about esports or talk about anything like that. So I am more than happy enough to send all my tax dollars to NPR. Where that's more of a liberal issue, something I'm more conservative on are rules and regulations when it comes to property. Like, I remember when we were growing up, when I was growing up and I got my first dog, we had to build a fence around the backyard, and apparently we had to get a permission or something from some Ohio chamber that would allow us to build a fence on our own yard. That's something that seemed a little ridiculous to me, that the government would get involved and interfere, really, that we would have to get permission to just build a fence on land that we owned. Those are political beliefs that I have, that we should fund NPR and that the government shouldn't get involved with rules and regulations when it comes to a person's property. And those are things that I've always been, whenever I have any belief like that, I always think back to that phrase, know what you believe and why you believe it. Know what it is you really believe in. I believe that the government can do some really great things with funding, like creating things like NPR, and I also believe that the government probably shouldn't get involved with whether or not I'm allowed to build a fence. But just as important, being able to say why it is that's something that you believe in. Is it because your parents raised you that way and you think that you think the same things that your parents think, or is it because there's some fundamental political issue that you feel strongly on? Anyway, relating this all back to League of Legends, this is a phrase that I think does a great job of explaining how you get good at League of Legends yourself and not really just copying what other people do who are better than you. And this is what goes back to the whole mastery page argument. I think that it's really important that when you're going through Runes and Masteries, you know what you're doing and why you're doing it. Are you just copying Runes and Masteries from probuilds.com or champion.gg or any of one of the sites where you can go and see what the most popular runes are, what the most popular mastery pages are, or the Runes and Mastery pages that have the highest win ratios, and all the different things that people are running? You can technically just go out and copy all those pages down if you want and never give a second thought to the Runes and Masteries you run on any champion. Just leave it up to whoever you're copying that stuff down from. But that's something that hampers your experience when playing League of Legends, and it makes you a worse player. You don't know what Runes and Masteries you're going if you're just running your Runes and Masteries in pages named Aurelia, and you just pick those Aurelia pages every time you play Aurelia. That's something that kind of makes sense, and it seems like a really convenient thing to do with the Rune and Mastery page system, but I also think it's kind of a mistake when it comes down to it, and it's something that makes you a worse player when it comes to critical thinking over time. Going back to this article, I say that I never run mastery pages because by not running mastery pages, I force myself to redo my masteries every single game, force myself to make decisions in what masteries I'm going to be choosing, and force myself really to know what I'm running and why I'm running it as I go through the mastery page in every single champion select. This is something that I eventually dropped, and I made my own Runes and Mastery pages, and it's something that actually hampered my experience as a player, I think. If I had to look back at the past season, the season that we're just coming out of, I would say that I've made a lot of mistakes in the past, but the biggest mistake I've ever made was probably just naming my Rune and Mastery pages Aurelia, Wukong, whatever, just naming it after the champions I'm playing and then choosing them without really thinking about the Runes and Masteries I'm running. I know some of them, I know what keystones I'm doing, but I'm not really thinking about each little individual decision, and I think I've become a lazier player because of it. If you watched any of my super old videos and you saw the Runes and Masteries I ran in them, you may notice that I used to title my Runes and Masteries really weird and obscure things, just references to books I liked or movies or TV shows and random things that I thought it would be kind of funny if I could give little references to people that look up my Runes and Masteries because they want to copy Aurelia pages down and whatnot. But this past season, I stopped doing that, and that was the biggest mistake I have made the entire season, and that's something I'm also going to change in the upcoming season. I currently redid my Runes and Masteries, so they're back to things where, although my mastery pages are currently just named for the champions that I'm using them on, that's something I'll probably change back when we get the new mastery update, and we'll have to all redo our masteries anyway in the new preseason with the mastery changes. This next upcoming season, I'm going to make a conscious effort to really do my best to always be thinking about the Runes and Masteries that I run, and always just be thinking, what am I doing in League of Legends and why am I doing it? Am I doing it because a pro player told me to, or because I saw a pro player do it, or am I doing it because I have logic and reason behind my thinking? If there's one piece of advice I want you guys to remember from my YouTube channel 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, long after you've forgotten who I am or probably quit League of Legends, you're off doing your own thing in life, you have a family, you have a job, you have a career, the one thing I hope you guys will always remember is please know what you believe and why you believe it. Whether you're talking about some issue in politics or religion or or anything that doesn't have a right answer, where there's debate and debacle between two conflicting sides, please understand which position you're taking and why you're taking that position. That's the best piece of advice that I could ever give you in any YouTube video, and I hope it's something that you're able to remember. Anyway, with all that being said, I think this is something that I'm going to try my absolute hardest to put at the forefront of my memory for the next upcoming season. It's probably something I'm going to have to work on, among other things, if I'm ever going to get master. But anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed watching today's video. I'll see you all tomorrow, but until then, thank you very much for watching. Good luck in solo queue, and have a wonderful day.